What's up, Troopers? It's another TFT mini. This time, Cunning Deployment, running another Advantage mini. So this one, Mike, I feel like maybe this is the clone player in me, but at least when I was first starting Legion, this felt like one of the just sort of obvious ones of everybody can put it into their deck if they don't have a better idea. And it still kind of feels that way, but what would you say is like the best argument for having cunning deployment in your battle deck, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there are several ways to kind of like take advantage of the effect. I think there are three main ones that I'd like to highlight. The first is you can share tokens via the clone trooper keyword.
Hmm.
The second one is you can share tokens via the exemplar keyword.
Accurate.
The third one is this card gets significantly better in a situation where you are aggressively placing your units on turn one. And what I mean by that is you've got a unit like Bad Batch or Sleeper Cell
Right.
or a speeder bike unit that you would like to at least have the option of aggressively deploying on turn one to attack your opponent's unit, and it's possible that you're going to take some return fire.
Aqua
Um,
Droid's another good example.
Aqua droids,
Yeah.
right? Um, so I think those are the three circumstances that I would like if you are doing these three things,
Hmm.
one of these three things, and not every list is, uh, you should strongly consider cunning deployment.
Yeah, because it what you don't want ideally is for these dodges to go to waste, and they often will. Even and it's not necessarily your fault if they are. It's just like the way that that game shakes out. But you want to give the best chance of them having utility, and if you can't control whether your opponent is able to shoot your list at all, but you can to a certain extent control like what are the units that in your list that are going to be in a place where they're shootable at all. And so just like Mike said, those units that want to be a little bit more aggressive, that is a situation where they are somewhat vulnerable to getting shot back, even though it's hopefully going to be late in the round, so that you're minimizing the potential that they can get shot back. But if you're running a list, like for some reason I default to the idea of just running a whole bunch of B2s as sort of like the most generic list possible in
Okay.
Legion. Uh, if I was running a list where it was just like Grievous and a bunch of B2s, like I don't think I would take cunning deployment in that list. Would you?
No, probably not. I think fortified position would be a better choice,
Right, right.
likely. You know, I also think that in part of cunning deployment, also you should think about what primaries and secondaries you're playing. I
Hmm.
think that objectives like intercept signals and marked targets and destroy enemy base and recon mission and service scan. Um, Basically, you have units that are carrying things that are designated before the game starts. Um, Protecting those units is important, and cunning deployment can help with that, right?
Yeah.
If your opponent, particularly when there's like a lot of marked units, like marked targets, um, being able to like hand out three dodges to three of your four marked targets units just so that they don't like take chip damage on turn one and
True.
is helpful,
Yeah,
right?
that can mean a lot.
Um, or on intercept signals, like you really do not want to lose either of your signal units ever. And so, just kind of having some extra security to handle something that is unexpected is also a decent thing to have access to.
And that's a good point because I've often found myself in the situation where like I'm red player. I flipped advanced intel first, and so my opponent got rid of that. And then maybe I spent my first play to change the primary to something I like more, and then all of a sudden we're at the end. I'm fine with the objectives, and I have like ordnance face up, and then I have cunning deployment as the third card, which means that I literally get to choose which of the two is the advantage I use, and I feel like I've been in that situation quite often actually. Because those are like three of the basically maybe the three most common advantages that are taken at all. And it's you're right that I probably actually could be thinking about how that interacts with the objective a little bit more rather than doing the sort of basic thing that I usually do, which is I look over at my opponent's end of the table and I'm like, how much armor do they have, or how many vehicles
Sure.
do they
Yeah,
have?
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
that's like
yeah.
what I'm basing the choice on, is that it is a little bit more to it than that.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, like if your opponent's got 6 vehicles and you're choosing between ordnance and
Yeah,
cunning
you probably
deployment,
just
you
take the
probably
ordinance.
should still take ordnance, right?
Yeah,
Um, but I do think that like in those situations, those are situations where the checkbox is definitely more in the I would rather have cunning deployment than otherwise, right? It might not
right,
be
right.
enough to push the needle all the way, but it is helpful to protect certain units in your list at certain junctures in the game, right? So
Yep.
um, I would say that like cunning deployment is the easiest condition I think to have do absolutely nothing in your game. Um,
Yep.
it is while it is generally a very played condition. I think like 70% of the time it literally does nothing, and you would have been better off with something else. And um, that is something to consider.
That said, having exemplar really reduces that risk by a lot.
Yeah,
I will say that in a double aqua list with the super tech, like being able to put dodges on both the aquas and Kalani, it's pretty nice
yeah,
to be able to squeeze all that out of there. But yeah, so it's a fairly generically good card, but it's not always like universally awesome. So it does go back to the idea that players do have choices to make when it comes to what cards to include and what to actually use in a given game. But yeah, I think that kind of covers it for cunning deployments. If you like what we're doing, then please do consider checking out the Patreon. But otherwise, we'll see you on the next TFT mini.